is 1 hour, so try to get through. Okay, Mayor, we are now live on Facebook and ready for the conference session on February 23rd, 2021. Tara, do you have the
Yep.
meetings act? Go ahead.
Okay. Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by the Open Public Meetings Act, was provided through the posting, mailing, and filing of the annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings of the Town Council on December 11, 2020. The notice was, on that date, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, provided to the Westfield Leader in the Star Ledger, and filed with the clerk of the Town of Westfield. And
We have a quorum. Okay. So we have a presentation, but we're going to move that to the end. I don't see Chris and Phil here yet. Steve Lennox is here as well, but let me run through the resolutions, Mayor, and we have a couple of committee reports, quick updates from the committee chairs, both Mark Parmley and Linda, and then we can get to the presentation from topology. So under Finance Committee, you saw we did send out a revised agenda today. We had a few late starters, which we expected a couple of them. So I'll highlight those. So under Finance Committee, we had two resolutions that were late just added today, which is resolution authorizing CFO to draw warrant to replenish postage meter, and a resolution authorizing CFO to draw warrant for replenish bulk mail permit. These are just updating our monies for those mailing coming up for the sewer mailing, which is going out this week, and the Conservation Center mailing, which is expected in the next couple of weeks. So we have to get that ready to go. The other ones are authorizing CFO to draw warrant for unused parking permit fee, one fee being refunded there. Second one, or fourth one, is a resolution authorizing CFO to draw warrants for overpaid taxes in 2020 and 21, 3 property owners there. 5 is a resolution authorizing the CFO to draw warrants for 2020 pursuant to tax court in New Jersey, 2 property owners there. And the last one is a resolution authorizing CFO to make a budget transfer. This is one of our last ones you'll see, probably see 1 or 2 more in March for the 2020 budget, just finalizing all the details for 2020. So that's it under finance for resolutions. Any questions? Okay, we'll go right to Covey on Town Property. We have one resolution tonight. We did have the liquor license transfer, finally came through after a number of weeks. This is, if I have this right, Tara, this is a plenary liquor license, which is for a liquor store, which
Right.
is transferred from one owner to the other, and I believe it's going to be pocketed then. Is that right?
yeah, there's no location yet.
Okay, so this is
So that means another transfer at some point when they find a place.
gotcha.
So Jim, who was the owner?
This is the
The
Westfield
transfer.
Liquors and the Walgreens.
Oh, that's right.
Location?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And they're transferring to a new
Yeah.
owner. They're going to pocket and find a new location. So,
Yeah, that's right.
under Public Works Committee, these are 2 new ones for tonight. These were bids we had out. So we are asking for a resolution to reauthorize or authorizing rebid for the 2021 miscellaneous ramps and drainage improvement project. We didn't get any bids. It's not unusual. It's a little early in the season to get bids, so we're just reauthorizing bid on that. Most of this is to get out and do handicap accessible ramps prior to Elizabethtown and Gas paving of many, many roads. And we'll be following up with some capital budget discussions in the next few weeks about our road program as well. And the second one is a resolution to award contract for various landscape material for the Department of Public Works through a bidding process. And this is what we've been doing annually, awarding a contract to a vendor to be able to buy trees and other things that we do to get planting done throughout the course of 2021. So those are 2 things that we've already talked about those in our budget. Under Code on Town Property tonight as well, there is a resolution on first reading, or sorry, an ordinance on first reading, ordinance number 2209, an ordinance adopting the South Avenue redevelopment plan. We'll hear more about that tonight, both in this meeting here from Chris Colley and Phil Aberson and Steve Lennox, and at the next meeting as well. This is an introduction of an ordinance, and then it'll be referred to the planning board as normal procedures. And we'll get back to that presentation shortly. We do have 2, well, before I get that, we have 3 ordinances. I keep on getting the things confused. 3 ordinances on second reading tonight at the public session. Just a reminder, one is for stop signs or stop sign at Sherman and Sherbrooke. The other one is for designating 417 Prospect Street as a historic home. And the third is the passing the model stormwater ordinance update as required by state law. So those are also on second reading at the legislative session at 8 o'clock. We have two.
Then I just wanted to say, I understand that Mrs. Goldstein, 417 Prospect, may be on the call at the meeting. So,
Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah, she's not on here at this meeting, but yeah, well, if she attends the public meeting, that's great. I know the mayor was going to say a few words as well, so hopefully maybe we can even call on her. Maybe. So
Yeah.
We have two committee reports tonight. I'll ask Linda, you want to go first? There's a quick update on the budget.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to let everybody know how we're progressing with budget-related meetings. We, as of last week, wrapped up all of the discussions with the departments and had good discussions. We obviously are looking for all opportunities to cut costs this year. Since we don't really know, what the continuing impact of the pandemic will be on revenue sources like court and parking in particular, where, we had, quite, much lower collections in 2020 than we had in 2019. So what happens next is that we'll be having at least one more meeting to take a look at the budget, and then the next town council meeting, so 2 weeks from today, we'll be introducing it to this group in conference session. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll be making the presentation to the public with the full PowerPoint and all hoopla. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that the budget at westfieldnj.gov email address is still open for any questions or comments that the public has. So if you want to pass that along to any constituents, we're keeping an eye on that. And that's really about it. I don't have anything else. Just quick.
Okay, that's great. No, it's been a lot of meetings, as Linda mentioned, and more to come. But I think we'll have a good budget for 2021, even in the face of the pandemic. So thank you, Linda.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Mark Parmalee for Covey and Town Property, update of what's going on in your committee.
Yeah, sure. Just a few things. The committee is meeting coming up this Wednesday. We're going through a variety of things. I have a few things to report speaking of the budget. So, for example, one of the things we're looking at is the sales of some properties. And what that is basically slivers of property that Westfield owns that's really otherwise unusable and untaxed. And so ultimately what it does is it adds some revenue to the town. It adds some going forward tax revenue, and also eliminates liability from property that's otherwise not being used by anyone. But I have one thing that I'd like to bring to everyone's attention that's really a unique opportunity and proposal that the town's currently considering in response to a request we recently received from a wireless provider. So on February 5th of this year, the town received a letter from AT&T expressing again its interest in installing a cell tower near the Houlihan and Sid Fay fields. And so, obviously, why would we take this question seriously? Well, based on a number of factors, but primarily because of our need to address the longstanding parking and pedestrian safety issues at Houlihan Sid Fay. And so I just kind of want to give you an overview of what's being considered before any decisions are made. Obviously, making those decisions with the input of everybody in town. So if you're like me and you've taken your kid to a sporting event at Sid Fay, you've surely experienced the lack of adequate parking that forces cars to park alongside Rahway Ave, on the St. Helens side of the street, and parents and athletes and the younger siblings have to cross the road on the busy road to get to the entrance of Sid Fay. And you've probably also noticed the lack of a bathroom facility there. There's just a porta-john, and certainly an unfortunate lack of any ADA compliance facility. And so what we're considering now is what I think is really an innovative solution and unique solution to solve these issues at no cost to taxpayers. So AT&T has cited a need to improve service in the southeast section of town, specifically that Lambert's Mill to Willow Grove and Clifton Street area, inclusive of Tamaqua and Jefferson Elementary Schools. These areas have been identified as having wireless service gaps, specifically in the interiors of homes and buildings. And boosting coverage in this area would improve the reliability of our emergency response network for our first responders. And additional coverage will also benefit the scores of us who've adopted to working remotely and will hopefully continue to do so, at least partially, long after these COVID restrictions have passed. And so the specific cell tower location that would be proposed is it's essentially adjacent to the far side of the Houlihan Sitfe parking lot, abutting the Conrail freight railroad tracks, that massive PSE&G substation on the Clark side of the tracks. And in return for allowing a provider to install a cell tower there, the town would require the provider to pay for the proposed Houlihan Sitfe improvements that were recommended in the strategic parks plan. And that includes a new parking lot with up to 77 additional parking spots, enhanced entrance and exits, installations of bathrooms, and coverage of the cost to make the facility fully ADA compliant. And the concession, and Jim is actually, I think, going to sharing his screen, and he's showing what the plan looked like. And the tower would go in an area to the very left side of that triangle, left side of the image, farthest away from the fields and from the parking lot.
Yeah, this Mark, just to chime in, this is the page out of the park strategic plan for Houlihan Sitfe Fields. This is the concept that the consultant recommended in the report. Again, some of what you're talking about here, adding, right now the parking lot is about this big with no bathroom facility. The proposal is to extend the area, obviously, with much more parking, a new entrance, widening the existing entrance, and including a new restroom facility. Of course, that's a recommendation we have. So these, something we would try to capitalize on with this proposal, possibly.
Jim, what is that? Is that the PSE&G substation?
Yeah, this right here in the across the tracks here, this is the PSE&G substation here. Of course, the rail line, the Conrail, CSX rail line, freight line is here between the field, of course, and the substation.
So what is the location for the proposed tower would be where, right?
I think we talked about either on the far end of the lot or somewhere in the area, but again, it's all subject to, if we get that far, subject to whatever the RFP would say, but they want to do it in the parking lot area.
And we don't know whether AT&T will agree to all of this. I guess that's the process. That's right, and I guess, and Mark, I guess the committee is recommending that. I guess the first step would be getting a cellular communications consultant on board, so that they can advise us properly, because obviously we don't do this very often. So getting their expert recommendations of where it might go, what the best opportunity for us is, and then if that was to all work out and everyone agreed to it, then we go to an RFP to the marketplace and see if vendors would be interested in applying. And in the RFP, you list the amenities that you wanted to get in return for allowing the opportunity for using town land.
Yeah, so that's, go ahead, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilman. So the idea would be that we would get the advice from a consultant to help us put a potential RFP together, so that we would get insights
Yes.
from an expert. Okay.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. And so that's what's really unique about this arrangement, is that the concept of, that's why we need a consultant as well, because this is kind of a unique approach to it, because in theory, the provider would front end payments, and those payments would be, in exchange for the building or the improvements of the lot, the restroom facilities and everything else at Sitfe. And it'd be in conjunction with the safety improvements that the county is making as well. And that they're putting up a traffic light at the intersection of Rahway as well. And so it's in a way to keep that whole corridor safer for all the participants who go to the field. So, the idea is to contract with the consultant now at no cost to advise the town and really evaluate the wireless provider's interest and to aid in negotiating a deal for Westfield that addresses the town's needs and the public's input if we decide to move forward.
I think it's worth noting, Councilman, that also in the picture here are the 230 kilovolt lines that run along the track. So I don't know the height of a cell tower, but I think it's pretty comparable to the existing utility poles that are there, which carry those 230 kilovolt. So this is a very industrial area. So it actually seems like it might be a good place, for a cell tower to bring that needed service to the southern part of town.
Right. And I think that you also have to realize that the providers always have the option to go to an alternate site on private property, either in Westfield or even directly across the tracks in Clark. And this has actually happened before. A carrier was interested in placing, a tower at Public Works. So maybe about a decade ago, after the town rejected the offer, the carrier relocated that tower by about 800 feet into a corner of Scotch Plains. And that distance is roughly the length of the train platform at the train station here in Westfield. So, that would improve the coverage for Westfield, but it would entirely eliminate us from being able to reap any of the investment or revenue benefits from the placement of the tower. So we refer to as kind of the Garwood ShopRite scenario, in which we didn't allow a store to be located in Westfield. So it was moved literally just a few feet over the border into Garwood, and we were stuck with the traffic issues that we were concerned about in the first place, and yet received no tax benefit in the back end. So we're going to be bringing on this consultant, again, at no cost, to advise us on the negotiations with the providers. And then once the responses are received, we're going to alert everybody and ask for input, and we're going to evaluate all of that in making the decision on whether or not to move forward.
Great.
Good opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Obviously we want to receive community feedback on this and kind of help assess, whether we should take advantage of this opportunity, but it certainly is unique. And I think, Jim, I think we've posted some initial FAQs on the website as well.
We will be, yes. There's just about the prosecutors described. We have some of those. We'll be putting them up today and tonight, I guess. And then again, if the council is authorizing the RFP, that'll be posted probably this week as well for the consultant, and see how that goes. And there'll be some weeks in between to craft the process. But yeah, no, it's to have an opportunity like this to get a benefit on town property, recreational benefit that was recommended, is something that doesn't come along very often. So
that's right.
Do we know, Jim, the estimated cost of those improvements? It's a big number, isn't it?
Yeah, it depends on what we include in the RFP. There's a laundry list of recommendations in the park strategic plan for all the parks. The question is how detailed. Really, what that picture I just showed before really is focusing on two major things, which is the bathroom facility and of course parking lot. But there's a lot of many other things that we could consider: storage facility, security, lighting, cameras. There's all sorts of things. Water bottle filling stations. There's ADA compliance, I think the councilman mentioned as well. So lots of issues that we can consider. The question is, what would a willing vendor be willing to do? How much would it cost, and what do we want? So we have a lot of opportunity in our disposal.
David, it's Mark. We talked a lot about this in our code review meeting. I'm just curious, what do you think the Green Team's position will be based on, children playing under a cell tower? There's a school across the street and St. Helens Parish. So just curious if you have any feedback, because I know the Green Team is very active in some of the sports activities that are, proposed in town.
I don't know what the Green Team would say. It's not really their place to have a point of view. I think it's really up to the council to decide. So, I would just say that I think we have to look at all the aspects of this and make the right decision for the town.
Mark, remember, I mean, this is what some of the things that we were talking about was just given the proximity of the substation, the kilovolt wires and the towers that are near there, the fact that it's an industrial area. This is something that's not going to be aggravating any situation that's already present in that area. So, and
Yeah, I would also say, I think we have Wi-Fi in our lives, right? Which everybody's home all around us. Everybody's got their phone on them. So I think the concerns that a lot of people have probably are potentially a little exaggerated. And we're living with Wi-Fi every day.
Okay. Anything else, Mark? Or Mark Plumley?
nothing from me.
Sure, okay.
You said in the beginning, you said Wednesday, the meeting is next Wednesday, right? The 3rd?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's great.
Sorry, that's Mark. I lost track of days there, but yes, I meant.
All right, that's it for the committee reports. We do have a presentation. I see Chris Colley is here. We have a limited time in this meeting, Chris, as I think you know, and we'll be doing, and Phil, I see, there he is, Phil appears. All right, hello, Phil. So if you guys can, if you're able to share your screen to go through your presentation. Again, Chris and Phil are here, along with Steve Melenak, at both of our meetings tonight, 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock, give a quick rundown of the development plan for the South Avenue properties owned by Elite Properties. And we'll be repeating this in the public session, 8 o'clock, for more of the public that might be joining. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Terrific. Thanks, Jim. I'm going to share my screen. Phil, you want to introduce us while I do that?
Sure. This is Phil Abramson. I think I've obviously presented before you previously. We're going to basically share what the public is going to see tonight in terms of the South Avenue redevelopment plan. And Chris is going to go ahead and kick us off.
Terrific. Thank you. All right. We're excited to be here this evening. We're going to give you a nice little overview, some history, some content of the plan, and some next steps. I believe this is the first redevelopment plan being introduced in Westfield, at least in recent memory. So that's exciting. And we're happy to be part of that. So I'm going to start with a little background. Since this is your first redevelopment plan, at least recently, just a little context as to the advantages of using redevelopment. One, it gives you, the town, the opportunity to plan and to implement a very specific vision for a specific area. So much more targeted than traditional zoning is. And that specificity goes both in terms of geography, in terms of a very targeted area, but also in terms of the characteristics of the buildings that are permitted and the characteristics of the site design that comes out of these plans. So if you've had an opportunity to look through our draft plan, you'll see that it goes really above and beyond, or much further beyond any of the types of requirements you would see in a regular zoning code. There's stuff in there about very detailed landscaping, very detailed explanations of what these sidewalks should look like and what the public spaces should look like between the buildings and the streets. Very specific information about buildings and site design. And lastly, it gives you an opportunity to promote public benefits above and beyond what is possible through traditional zoning. And our plan lays out places for that throughout the document. So just so we all know what we're talking about five properties located on South Avenue, close to the Garwood border, totaling about 5.6 acres. You'll hear me, 5.7 acres. You'll hear me throughout the presentation referring to the north subzone and the south subzone. The north subzone means the property is north of South Avenue. The south subzone means the property is south of South Avenue. And we have different standards laid out for both of those. So these properties sit a little bit outside of downtown, something like 0.6 miles away from the train station, and in a sort of vacant / I won't use the word abandoned, but vacant and approaching abandoned status industrial properties. So we always like to talk a little bit about site history when we do these presentations. And I think for this one in particular, the history is perhaps one of the most important things for us to hit on in our discussion, because oftentimes when we write redevelopment plans, it's our job to sort of figure out what an appropriate build out would be How many units should it be? How many square feet should it be? And in this case, like that piece of the job was already done. This site is governed by existing fair share housing obligations, settlement agreement from 17, a housing element and fair share housing plan in 2018, and then a subsequent overlay zone also in 2018. And each of those documents lay out the permitted build out, 193 units, 17,000 square feet of non-residential space. And that build out is baked into our redevelopment plan and will sort of form the general parameters for us to work in. This idea of you pursuing projects that are defined in your fair share housing documents is nothing new in Westfield. You've done this several times before. 333 Central, the Bentley, the Parker, all of these are projects that were identified in your fair share housing and were constructed as a result of that. What this project does, which is a little different, is we're doing it through redevelopment, and that gives you this opportunity to be a lot more detailed, as I said, in terms of the design. I should have said in the beginning, I know we had some of this conversation 6 or 9 months ago, so some of this might be duplicative for you all, but it was not stuff that ever made it to the public. So as I mentioned, like really the site history here, which is most crucial, happens in that 2017 to 2018 range when the town enters into this settlement agreement with Elite Properties, the property owner, and the Fair Share Housing Center. After that settlement agreement, you adopted your housing element and fair share plan, which also defined the amount of units on the site. You adopted an overlay zone in March 2018, which also defined the amount of units on the site. And then in early 2020, you, and by you, I mean this body, frankly, this town council made a decision to investigate whether or not the property qualified as an area in need of redevelopment. And that step and that finding that it did qualify as an area in need of redevelopment is really what sort of started the ball rolling on this redevelopment plan and brought us to where we stand today with a potential introduction of the document that sits before you. So I don't know if anybody's been on these sites recently, but we did think it was important to show you what they look like. So these are photos taken by Don, thanks Don, during his investigation of the site for the preliminary investigation. And what you see here, I mean, is you see properties that were found to be quote unquote in need of redevelopment. You see properties that are sort of in disrepair, underdeveloped, just sort of classic old industrial beat up sites. And what we have the chance to do through redevelopment here is to really take these conditions and to sort of turn them on their head, to take these negative conditions and put forth a project that's really special and can sort of serve as a catalyst for the town. So as I mentioned, there's this affordable housing overlay on the site that's in green here, covering these 5 specific properties. And that affordable housing overlay really provides the framework for our plan. So if you look at that zoning, you'll see it says 37.77 units per acre in the north side, 25 units per acre in the south side. If you look at our redevelopment plan, you'll see those same figures. You'll see in that overlay that the property needs to create 15% affordable units plus an additional 3 units that were relocated from another site that Elite had control over. You'll note that in our redevelopment plan as well. And you also see uses, multifamily residential, ground floor retail, open space, and parking. All of that serve to inform our redevelopment plan here. On height, the height existing in the overlay is 3 stories on the north side, except a portion at up to 4 stories, and on the south side, 3 stories. So my last bit of history before I actually get to the document itself, Elite had prepared concept plans built sort of consistent with that underlying zoning. This is the concept plan they were working with in 2019. You might remember this drawing from the last time we were here. And they also had prepared renderings consistent with that. And, you know, as I said, like since we, in this case, weren't really defining a building program, like really our job here was to take those existing standards and that existing concept and sort of refine them through the redevelopment plan to create the best possible project for the town, the best possible zoning for the town. So moving into the actual plan and like what's in that, whatever, 60, 80 page document that you have in front of you. As I said, the land use standards that are in there are what I'm going to say are generally consistent with the existing overlay. We really took that existing overlay zone, the overlay that's defined by fair share housing, that's grounded in like what the court said and what the town committed to. And we use that as the foundation of our redevelopment plan. So the density in the plan is the same as the overlay. The number of units in the plan is the same as the overlay. We took some liberties as it related to non-residential uses. So the overlay, for example, had 5,000 square feet in the south, 12,000 square feet in the north subzone for non-residential uses. We consolidated all of those in the north, one 17,000 square foot collection in the north subzone. And we added some greater flexibility for what those non-residential uses might be. The overlay zone specifically just says retail. It's a different world than it was in 18 when this overlay passed. So now, in addition to traditional retail, we have restaurants in there, we have personal services, we have childcare centers, sort of a greater flexibility based on change in market and also, frankly, like what we think are quality uses for the locations. I'll also say the setbacks are basically consistent with what was in the overlay. We did make modifications to accommodate the changed layout and to really create what we think is a better public realm. And lastly, on height, I mentioned there's a permitted fourth floor in the overlay. We moved that fourth floor closer to South Avenue than was previously permitted. We think it creates a better site plan and a more attractive building. And we'll look at that in just one moment. We also made a limited accommodation for a potential fourth floor with no additional density, no additional units on the south subzone. We also think that could potentially yield a more attractive building. So as I've sort of been alluding to for that last slide, we use the overlay as the base, but like we think there's a lot of advancement that's been made here in terms of the site design. So especially the way the parking's laid out, the way that we've created new open spaces, the way the plan mandates new streetscape improvements, and importantly, in the quality of the architecture. So this is the 2019 concept plan, as I described. This is where we're at now, and this is the plan that we sort of use to write the standards in the RDP. This is different than the one you saw last time, so not the exact same thing. But some of the highlights that are worth pointing out for like what you're getting in this redevelopment plan versus what the overlay permitted. The parking previously was sort of located here in the central courtyard and down here on lot 17. We've gotten it off of there and we've consolidated it in the rear, the side, and at the ground level of these buildings, as well as on the street. The garage entrances were previously located, and this is something that was permitted under the overlay, along South Avenue. When you're trying to like develop a pedestrian-friendly environment, which we are, and the master plan speaks to, like you don't want to have garages on the street frontage. So we've moved those to the back. The plan mandates that. As I mentioned, we have this new courtyard in the center. We have these active uses along South Avenue. Some of the modifications to the fourth story, which I spoke about before, and you can ask me about later if you'd like. Crucially, this area is now open space instead of a parking lot. So you can just imagine how much better that's going to be for someone traveling down South Avenue, going past open space instead of going past a parking lot, right? And we have mandated in the plan various streetscape improvements and landscaping improvements, which are reflected in this plan. So moving from site design to architecture, as I said, this was the architecture previously under the overlay. What we can do with the redevelopment plan is be very specific about the types of buildings that we'd like to see. So we took the liberty of doing a survey with the planning board maybe 6 months ago at this point to get their preferences for what they'd like to see on South Avenue. We presented, I think, 17 buildings to them. These were some of the sort of highest scoring responses. So we took this, we baked out some themes, and we went back to the property owner with it. We said, we think that this is the type of aesthetic that the town is looking for. They were able to produce this rendering here, which the redevelopment plan writes standards to sort of codify this aesthetic. We think this is a really, frankly, beautiful building that Westfield can be proud of and that can serve as a real attractive gateway into the town. Show you one more view here. This is all in the north subzone now. You'll note the brick projections at 3 stories, the 4th story recessed back, and this sort of like cool like capstone feature on the side. So all in all, much sort of stronger building design. So I sort of started by saying that, in this case, like this is really a design exercise. It's not a density exercise because the density is already baked in. But we think that the plan that we put forth for you tonight for your review and your potential introduction really advances the site and creates a much higher quality product for the town, both in terms of the site plan for the reasons that I went through, as well as the architecture. And we think that this redevelopment plan that you're considering, is a really effective way to sort of get this impressive project. I won't read these again, but we can go back to them as reference if you'd like. But site plan, architecture, all improved throughout, and you'll see that if and when you peruse the document. So I'll just sort of close with some next steps. Jim, I think I'm going to finish in time, under 15 minutes. Tonight is February 23rd. You have this redevelopment plan in front of you and on the agenda. Should you choose to introduce it, the next step is that it would go to the planning board for a consistency review with the master plan. Somewhere near the end of the document, you'll see we wrote up our own little section in terms of how we think this plan that we wrote fares relative to the objectives that you've laid out in your master plan. Planning board will review, we'll have a hearing, we'll give them a similar presentation. They'll send it back to you for a second reading and a public hearing. At that point, I'm sure there will be public comment and public discussion on the document, and you'll have the opportunity to adopt it. After that, this plan does require that anybody, namely the property owner who's going to build something under the plan, is designated via a redevelopment agreement, and that redevelopment agreement comes with corresponding attachments in terms of building elevations and floor plans and all things of that nature. So that's the overview we have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I appreciate you letting us walk through it, and Phil and I can answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Hi, this is Councilman Contract. I have a quick question. First of all, it looks great, and I think it's a huge improvement over what you showed us whenever it was 6 or 7 months ago. So thank you for the hard work. I think it's obviously a vast improvement over what's there, and even a vast improvement over what's been built in town. So I think this absolutely will move our town forward. Question for you just about parking on Windsor Avenue. I noticed it looked like there was street parking for the, I guess, the residents on both sides. Is Windsor big enough to accommodate traffic plus parking on both sides?
We believe so. Yeah, I mean, they would have to, as part of their site plan application, sort of like demonstrate that feasibility. They'll have to engineer it. But they felt comfortable enough to, they meaning the property owner, felt comfortable enough to think that fit. We haven't seen any issue with it. So yes, we believe it is.
Okay.
On that note, Chris, hi, this is Mike Dardia. I'm a Ward 2 councilman, so this project is particularly interesting to me. And on that note that Councilman Contract just brought up, I wonder about, if we're expecting residents to park on street, do we have a plan, overflow plan or anything like that for when we do have inclement weather, there's plowing that needs to get done? Where do those residents park in that instance?
Yeah, so let me clarify the on-street parking a little bit. This building has parking at the ground floor of each of those. Each of the building footprints has parking at the ground floor, parking on the sides, and parking on the rear. We imagine that the parking that happens on the street is really probably going to most likely accommodate the ground floor uses, right? There's 1.5 spaces per unit being provided as is for this building across the whole site. So it's a good question about like how the site's going to have to stay clear and the parking on the street's going to have to stay clear and accessible for folks. But I don't want you to think that like the idea is just park all the residents on the street, because it's not. The parking on the street should really be for the folks that are coming for the ground floor uses. I don't know if that answers your question.
All right, this is Councilman LaGrippo. So honestly, this is new to me. So as far as the parking, so you're saying residents would have to park possibly on Windsor Avenue?
I'm saying that on-street parking is permitted under this plan.
Yeah, I think,
you know,
I mean, I'm to say that I don't think that should be in the plan. I mean, that's you can't expect residents to be expect guests and stuff to be parked in Windsor Avenue into the third ward. I mean,
Yeah,
that impacts Councilman Contract tonight.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Councilman. So Chris, the project is compliant with regard to the current zoning standards of parking ratios. Is that correct?
Yes.
We're not counting the on-street parking for residential purposes. I think part of the reason why it's on Windsor is because there is a public park being contemplated there, and anybody who's been to some of these towns at the beach, they all know like it's great to have a beach, but then there's nowhere to park. So
there's no plan for a park. There is a local park there, Windsor Park, that was part of the old school that was there one time, and there is a state facility there, but there's been no update from the state as far as turning that into a park. So you're kind of putting the cart before the horse when you talk about a park there.
No, Mark, the plan includes a park, that little triangle piece.
Yeah, Chris, maybe go back to show that slide. Yeah, Councilman, the part of the proposal here is that the creation of a new park on that intersection.
yeah, and maybe we should use the word open space.
Yeah, open space.
That's the old Seville place, so it's not really a park.
Right,
It's just
and that's one of the wins. That's one of the wins, and it will be a park, and we're working on a design for that. That right now they have the ability to use that as a surface parking lot under the existing zoning overlay. As part of this redevelopment, there will be an open space there.
yeah, I mean,
I think,
go ahead, Mayor, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Councilman.
No, I'm just saying, I'm throwing for a loop now because, I'm a little, hearing from residents already about, congestion in the area, which, I understand, but, now you're gonna have people paying taxes and you have people parked in front of people's houses on Windsor Avenue, Myrtle Avenue. So, I thought all the parking was gonna be done on the premises.
Just to be clear, anybody who lives in that building will be able to park on site, right? Either in the first floor or behind. They're only, and potentially they're talking about potential retail use or a park, or if they can't park on site, they'll park on the street, similar to how things operate today. So I just wanted that clarity that anybody who's living there has plenty of space to park on site, not on the street.
Yeah, so I'm looking back at the site plan now. So on the north building, there is 156 156 units, and there are 264 parking spaces that are provided on that site, whether in the side yard, the rear yard, or the ground floor. So 264 spaces provided for those 156 units. On the south side, there are 37 units being proposed, and there are 49 parking spaces provided at the ground floor of that building. So the parking...
Retail, Chris.
Right, so then there's also 17,000 square feet of retail, which is under the redevelopment plan requires 34 parking spaces.
Right.
And we imagine South Avenue as being a place for like overflow parking for those retail uses.
All right, I mean, I'm no expert, but clearly it appears there's not enough parking implemented in this design. I mean, you look at Garwood, they have that whole parking deck for that reason, to keep the cars off the
You know what the parking ratio they provided in Garwood was? Sir?
Councilman?
I'm sorry?
Do you know
What's
what
the
the parking ratio in Garwood was?
I don't know. I don't know specifically off.
But you don't know if it's more or less than what these are.
But, I have a feeling this is now going to spill over to the residential areas, which is,
Well,
impacts more directly.
maybe would be the reason I think Phil asked, and maybe I can ask it, if you said it's clear to you. I wonder if you can expand on why you feel that, so we can respond to it, because the ratio that Chris just gave is a pretty healthy one for projects like this. So I think again, the plan is for the street to serve as overflow. So if you can specify why you think the ratio is not sufficient, maybe we can respond more appropriately. I think that's why Phil had asked.
Honestly, I don't think the street should be used for overflow. It's going to happen if there's, obviously visitors to the complex. But as Councilman Doherty has said, we already have an issue with cars in snowstorms, getting cars off the street. So, definitely a concern. I mean, were there more spots with the original design from 6 months ago?
I don't
believe there
believe
was,
so.
right?
We can double check that.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I remember that it didn't set a red flag. So I think 6 months ago, we had more parking built into this complex than we do now.
We could double check that. We also introduced retail, which, it's the council's prerogative to determine whether, you think that like a walkable South Avenue, a hospitable South Avenue with amenities for that neighborhood is important. And in order to get that retail where somebody could go and walk and get a gallon of milk, which kind of is always a little more challenging in suburban communities to kind of create that we had to use some of the parking, the on-street parking. It's better for the retailers if, as that comes back. And I think that, I encourage you, I would say on the way home, but we're not at a real hearing. You probably are home, to go down Windsor Avenue and to take a look at what that's like. It's not really on-street parking now. It's just being used as one massive driveway, Windsor Avenue.
When you say blight, I mean, that's a residential area. I mean, you shouldn't use that term blight. I mean, that's
I
people live
don't
on.
think I said blight, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is
I'm very familiar with Windsor Avenue. That was my mechanic right there, Seville's, before
Yeah.
closed down.
So, I mean, compared to this, what's going to be happening here with sidewalks and street trees and things of that nature, it's a vast improvement over, neighborhood quality of life.
Okay.
And I'll
Right.
just say this too, Phil and Chris, and thank you, because I know how long you guys have worked with Elite to get this to a place that would actually really enhance the pedestrian and landscape from South Avenue. And I also want to point out, like, what I hear a lot are people who are complaining about the aesthetics of some of the buildings like 333 Central and others, where we didn't have a redevelopment plan and weren't able to assert the level of influence and control that you have been able to dedicate here. So I just want to point that out, is that one of the big reasons we did a redevelopment plan is in response to residents' complaints about the lack of cohesiveness and control that we had over development projects. So I think showing what was back initially part of the original plan and where you guys got it to it really speaks for itself, I think, in terms of what a project that we can all be proud of.
Mayor, I agree with you. And in terms of the parking topology, it might be helpful to understand what the parking ratios were for some of those other buildings that you mentioned. The 333 Central, I think you said the Bentley, which is the first time I've ever heard that's what it's called at Pan Am Cleaners, and then the Parker. So might be helpful to know what those ratios are, and is this consistent with those ratios that were previously approved?
We're happy to get you that.
Thanks, guys.
We can look, Councilman. They're pretty consistent. A 1.5 parking space per residential unit is really pretty standard in developments such as this. So it doesn't give me any concern.
And they don't have those don't have the amount of retail that this would have.
Well, the so-called Bentley does have a commercial component to it in the ground floor. But you're right, 333 Central doesn't.
But the Bentley does, and the Bentley's is pretty significant.
Yeah, the one thing to keep in mind about the retail, Councilman, is that they operate what we call on a shared basis, really. Your retail uses are going to have your parkers during the day when your residents are out at work, and vice versa. When your residents come back, your retail is closed. So they're simpatico in their utilization of the parking spaces.
Well, that's true, but I mean, a lot has to do with type of business. If it's a restaurant, you're going to have more people in the evening on a weekend, right?
Yeah, but it's also a give and take, right? In 2021 with COVID, you with the uses, you can't have all 9 to 5, retail uses and expect the property owner to be able to fill them. You also want vibrant areas that are filled and not vacant as well.
So if I can just walk through some numbers, I'll try and do it efficiently. There are three.
And I'm sorry, let me ask, there was retail on both sides or just on one side?
Just on the north side.
It's only, yeah, so the retail's only on the north side. There's no retail on the south side. So even related to concern on Windsor Avenue, there's no retail on that side, that is just residential. So most likely, if there's people running into retail, they're going to be parking on South Ave.
And we thought it was a good thing for South Avenue from a really like a traffic calming and to kind of, say what you mean about South Avenue and like what the vision is for South Avenue. Having street parking makes it more of a walkable retail street than a regional arterial, which it sort of functions as now.
And I have to say, I think, guys, adding that open space, potentially a park, that's great. That's a huge amenity and improvement to that area. And I know we're also talking about improving the existing Windsor Park. So this is a really nice general improvement to this area today. So I appreciate you guys doing that because I think that's a big benefit.
Okay, great. We're wrapping up.
Sorry,
we're
Jim.
coming to the close of this meeting. You're not going anywhere. You're going to be back at the 8 o'clock meeting. Is it okay, Chris? Can we do the other numbers in the next meeting? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, all right. So I just want to see, I know we have, anyone else has any other thoughts, we can go to the public portion of this meeting. And then we can, adjourn this meeting and start the 8 o'clock meeting. We'll do it all over again. Okay, so we have, as anyone in the public will want to be heard, if about anything that I have jurisdiction over, 3 minutes, name and address. Please raise your hand virtually. I can call upon you. I'm not seeing anybody. Okay, seeing none there, I guess we can close the public portion of this meeting. And then we can have a motion to adjourn, unless there's any other comments, and then we'll be back here, same link, only in a few minutes to start the 8 o'clock meeting. And Chris and Phil and Steve will be back to make the presentation again, and as well as Don Sandler making a presentation about affordable housing compliance as we do every year. So unless there's any thoughts, motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. We'll see you in about 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Did you get my message?
Yeah, sorry, I missed it.
Oh, no problem.
Yesterday, I don't know. Hold on one second. Let's go on mute for 1 minute.
Hey, Chief. How'd I do this morning?
You see my comment? How this town does not have more fires, more acts. If you've seen our meeting with the citizens, the senior advisories committee today, you could have spent the whole 2 hours answering questions from them.
I could have. It's amazing that the volume of fire.
Sorry to interrupt. You want to just log back out and log back in again? We just had this little issue with the login. Do you want to just log out and log back in again if you don't mind?
Okay.